Imagine the satisfying Leviathan throwing gameplay of God of War with a fast-paced movement system that rivals many speedrunning favorites, and you get Boomerang X. This is Devolver Digital's latest indie darling that offers one fun action-heavy combat loop with tons of accessibility options. It's available starting today for Nintendo Switch and PC. But before we jump into this review, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on my reviews. Only 10% of you watching are subscribed, so let's get those numbers up. You can also join my Discord server for free with the link in the description. Boomerang X is one of the leanest games I've played this year. Not a lot of fat story or gameplay wise, and it gets right to the point. Upon starting, you find yourself on an island, quickly finding your new boomerang weapon, and are thrust against a bunch of corrupted enemies. While the story isn't deliberately told, there are hints and clues provided through the environments that, for the most part, do a good job at conveying what's happened here. Additional time with the NPCs further elaborate more details, but if you choose to just run and gun through this game, you might miss out on those details. I appreciated the choice because underneath its gameplay is a fun mystery that quickly tickled my curiosity the more and more I played. However, if you strictly just want to play this for its combat and gameplay, you can totally get away with it and speedrun this. Boomerang X isn't a particularly long game, but one with a gameplay loop that easily makes it replayable and pushes players to compete for the best completion times. You play as this nameless protagonist that wakes up on a mysterious island. Everything seems deserted at first, and you quickly come across this beautiful looking boomerang with the physics of Captain America's shield. Shortly after, you come across shadowy enemies of all sorts of variations and sizes. You're not entirely sure what to make of them, but you know they're not supposed to be there, and with your boomerang, you take them out. The boomerang is incredibly satisfying to throw, and on par with Kratos' Leviathan from God of War. Launch it at an enemy and quickly call it back, knocking out more enemies on the way back. Depending on how long you charge before throwing it, you can send it at a short distance or have it ricochet against the walls. Simple enough, and using that moveset, you're tasked with going from chamber to chamber, taking out waves of specially marked enemies that come at you. It may sound bare bones on paper, but it's honestly a ton of fun to play. Boomerang X also does a good job of easing your way into it by giving you only the basics for combat and providing some not too challenging enemies. However, the progression does ramp up at a nice pace that kept me hooked on being a nimble badass warrior. As I progressed deeper into the island, I'd unlock new powers like the ability to launch myself at the boomerang I just threw, completely flipping the script on how movement works here. Suddenly the levels had a lot more verticality, enemies had multiple weak points all around them, and I was launching myself all around the room to maneuver them. While admittedly it was hard to control at first, I quickly got the hang of it and loved the combat. You do have a health meter, so it's not instant death upon getting hit like most games that follow this gameplay loop, but even with the health, I found myself dying occasionally trying to pull off these amazing stunts in my head. It was a blast. And the powers don't stop there because you still continue to unlock more and even get rewarded for doing cool tricks. Taking out multiple enemies at once, for example, earns you a pulse blast that you can knock out bigger areas of enemies with, and that's just scratching the surface, but for the sake of spoilers, I'll just leave it at that. Outside of the addicting gameplay loop, there's a lot of customization and accessibility options for controls and gameplay options. For accessibility, you can completely change the coloring of objects along with the contrast, making things easier to see for some players. Gameplay modifiers like invincibility and no gravity mode also help those struggling to play to more easily take on enemies. Rest assured that timers are marked if these are turned on for anyone trying to be more strictly competitive with this game. As for controls, you can play with either mouse and keyboard on your PC, but if you're playing with a controller, you can also activate gyro controls complete with flick stick head turning. I haven't really seen too many first-person games take advantage of this feature, so seeing it here and implemented so well with motion controls, complete with sliders and everything, is a welcome touch. It might be a bit challenging for people who've never tried it before, but it's a great mechanic for those that choose to master it. Boomerang X has this abstract art style that reminds me a bit of Devolver's older game, Ape Out, only now in a first-person shooter. It features a cel-shaded look that reminds me a lot of how older PS1 low poly count games looked, only now with faster paced action and momentum-fueled movement that is so fun to execute. I played my review copy on Nintendo Switch and was pleasantly surprised to see how well everything ran. In dock mode, I got what looked like a 1080p 60 frames per second presentation that dropped down to 720p 60 in handheld mode. The colorful art style looks marvelous on the Switch, and any resolution imperfections between the Switch and the PC counterparts are hidden pretty well on the Switch. My only gripe between the Switch and the PC release are the controls, although I quickly got over that as well. Playing with analog sticks didn't feel as good on the Switch as it does with the mouse and keyboard on PC. However, upon finding the motion controller options and seeing flick stick was a choice as well, I adapted, and how I wish there was an option for that in most games. Boomerang X doesn't dwell too much on its music. There's very little of it throughout the game, and when it does play, it's used more as a transition piece instead of something that plays continuously on loop behind the combat. It's still pretty good, just not the centerpiece of the presentation. Instead, the game opts for more ambient noise with some solid HD rumble use if you're playing on Switch. Anytime a large enemy jumps or you get hit, the Joy-Con vibrate accordingly. I do wish they would have added some vibration to calling back the boomerang, as I think it would have made its combat all the more satisfying. Nevertheless, the subtle use is done well. Boomerang X is one stellar indie that pushes the envelope for fun speedrunning games. While it's on the shorter side and can be beaten in a single sitting, its pick up and play nature along with the entertaining gameplay loop made it a joy to play. Combat introduces some simple scenarios, but they quickly evolve into more elaborate and amazing set pieces. If you're playing with the controller, the stick controls aren't the best, but if you're playing with the PC, you should feel right at home. Motion controls are a great substitution option on the controller, but do require some time and patience in order to get well adjusted. Ultimately, whether you're playing on PC or Switch, I think you're going to have a great time with this one. Thank you very much for watching my review. If you found it informative and entertaining, then please consider subscribing. I make reviews for the latest AAA and indie games. What's been your favorite indie game lately? Let me know in the comments down below, as I'm always looking to play some cool new indies. Anyway, until the next video, I'll talk to you in the comments down below or over on my Discord server. The link is in the description.